Hello and welcome to another Considered Normal vlog. My name is Matthew Koster, and this is going to be a tutorial about how to set up a virtual LAN between different machines on different networks across the network, across the world, across the globe. Why would you want to have this? Well, I don't know about you, but I'm a gamer, or somewhat of a gamer, and I like to play old school titles like Warcraft 3. Now, in order to play Warcraft 3, you have to be on the same local LAN to play with buddies if you don't want to go through Battle.net and all that kind of stuff. And so you want to play on the local LAN, like if you're having a LAN party, all the computers in a room, you're all connected to the same little switch, and you have a local LAN. But to do that across several networks, you have to use a different type of software. Now, in the old days, we used to use a program called Hamachi. Now, the limitation with Hamachi in the free version is that it only allows 5 people to connect. So let me just take a look here and see if I can pull up Hamachi's website, which I believe was vpn.net. Because Hamachi, it becomes $49 a year, $50 a year, if you want to have more than 5 people on your network. So this becomes a paid product at that point. So I don't know about you, but I don't really want to pay $50 just to be able to have the ability to play a game with a buddy every once in a while. It's not worth it. So basically what ends up happening is the world has pretty much evolved from Hamachi, and there's a new application called ZeroTier, which is what we're looking at here. This program allows a lot more users. For instance, with Warcraft 3, Frozen Throne, you can have up to 8 players playing. Hamachi, you're out of luck, because 3 of them won't be able to play because you're only allowed 5. ZeroTier, on the other hand, well, they have 100 limitation, 100 devices per network, unlimited networks. What that means is say I want to have one network to play World of Warcraft with a bunch of my buddies. I want to have another network to play StarCraft with another bunch of buddies. I have another network to play whatever game with another bunch of buddies. That way, they're not all in the same network. They don't have all connections to each other, and they're all segregated. And the link between all 3 of those would be my machine. So my machine would be on all 3 networks, and everybody else would be on their own individual networks connected to me on each one of those networks, depending on if they're a StarCraft player, Warcraft player, or some other game. So let's try and get this set up. What I have here, as you can see, I have a Windows server set up, and this is located in New Jersey. I have a Linux server set up, and it's in Frankfurt, Germany. So what I'm going to do, of course, my machine is here in Canada. What I'm going to do is I'm going to connect all 3 of these machines to each other on a single network. I'm then going to be able to remote desktop into this this machine using the ZeroTier IP address, local IP address, as opposed to the external. And same with the Frankfurt, I'll be able to SSH into it without having to log in with the external. I'm going to be able to lock down, I don't know if you can do it with Windows. Again, I'm a Linux administrator by trade. I don't know much about Windows, but on Linux, you can basically tell SSH to connect on a certain IP address only. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to lock it down where you won't be able to connect SSH to the external IP address, only the internal IP address, the 192 address that I'm going to give it. This is definitely a great thing for security. If you want to do it for business, you can log in and secure it that way. But there's also the one limitation that you should use a service that has a console to view. By this I mean being able to, from the provider, connect to the console and be able to log in. Because if by any chance the ZeroTier application crashes, you won't be able to SSH in because it won't have the local IP address. So that's some things to think about when doing this, when doing it for servers. This is basically mostly for gamers. Like I said, the potential for this is a lot larger. I do have my particular web servers and stuff on this network, so I can SSH in and administer it without having to go externally, as well as transferring files from servers back and forth and having a virtual connection to it over the LAN. It's a lot easier than having to go through public channels. So how do we get started with this? Well, for one, you're going to have to actually log in or create your account at ZeroTier. Now, I've already created my account. Let me just quickly log out here. If you want to create an account, just click the Create Account button, put in your email, password twice, and you'll be able to get in. So let me just quickly log back in myself here. So basically what happens is now I'm into my account. This internal ID is really great for other networks, because you basically be able to share your network. So you have a network set up for a joint project. You have a web server and you want yourself to have access to it, as well as your buddy in a different location. You want to give him access to configure and control the network as well. You're going to need this his or her internal ID to add to it, to allow them to have access to the network. Now, let me show you what I'm talking about, because that's a little bit confusing. On networks, I don't have one yet, okay? So there are two ways to create a network. This is probably the best and most intuitive way to do it, because you have the most control. You could basically, in ZeroTier applications, say create and join directly from the application. It'll create a network for you, but that network is a public network. It's great if you just want to quickly get a bunch of people to connect right away, but we're going to do things a little bit differently here. We're going to actually create our own network, set it up properly, so that when we join with the other servers and stuff, we have the most control over it as possible. So we're just going to go and create a network. It's going to create a network with a random name. In this case, it's Pedantic Kleinrock. Not very intuitive, right? So we're just going to say CN private LAN. Let's just make it all capitals, make it look all nice and neat. Oh, and let's just make that into a dash. Okay, so now we have our private LAN. We have it as private. Okay, when you create this way automatically, it's private. When you do it the other way, it automatically makes it public. We don't want it public. We just want to have it so that only we can connect it, and we have full control over it. So we scroll down a bit more and stuff. We don't need to have the multicast. We do want to enable broadcast. If you are running games and stuff like that, we found that on Windows, at Warcraft 3 on a Windows client, will broadcast that it's running, and Linux will pick it up, because you do have to change your network priority. The reason for that is when you're playing certain games like that, you want it to use the ZeroTier network and not your regular network. But Linux is a little bit harder to change the priority of your network. In Windows, it's a little bit simpler. I'll show you that in a bit. So basically right now, we're managing routes as a 172. And I, being old school, 192.168 was always the easiest network to remember. So I'm going to select the 192.168.192, make it really easy to remember. We can get rid of that 172. Let's go back and put this back again. 192.168.192.0 is our network. I'm going to take off the auto assign. Now this is it is, but it is not an added security feature. What it is basically if somehow someone managed to get on your network, they won't have an IP address, because you have to actually assign it themselves. With the private network, you have to actually click and authorize that account. But I found that if you actually manage to log in, or somehow it'll actually automatically authenticate you. So it won't give them the IP address. But of course, if they're able to log in as you, then they can log into this portal and put in an IP address. So like I said, it is and it is not that extra layer. But the reason why I turn it off is I actually like to assign the IP addresses myself. Instead of it giving a random 192.168.192.25 or something like that, .24, .23, whatever, I specify the IP addresses, usually starting off at 10 for the client and 250 for the server, 250, 240, 230, 10, 20, 30 for the clients. That's the way I do things. You don't have to. You can enable the auto sign if you like to, but I just find it easier that way, because it's easier to remember which IPs are for who. So as I said, there are no devices joined as of yet. And remember I was talking about the ID here, right? If you want to share this network with somebody and give them access to authorizing accounts, like say everybody wants to play Warcraft 3 and you're not available, but Jimmy is, and Jimmy wants to invite Johnny to play, and you know Jimmy's a good friend of yours, you trust him, you trust his judgment, You can, of course, add his internal ID in here, and you can give him access to authorize. So he can't modify the network, he can't delete the network, but he can, of course, authorize somebody else to join it. So we do have a network ID now, and I'm going to join this computer to it. Now, the only thing is I've done this before, so this computer may already have a ID or have a accessibility. I haven't tested it as going back to it, so I'm not entirely sure, but we were going to find out now if it auto connects or if it doesn't, because this is a brand new network, so it shouldn't. So I just copied the ID. I'm going to download. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's already downloaded. It is. So here's ZeroTier. Basically what I do is I click on ZeroTier MSI and download it. I've already downloaded it in the past, because again, I've already tested this stuff out. I'm going to install it. This takes a few moments. Now, see down the bottom corner, I now have this icon. That's ZeroTier. Now, see, it already has me logged in, so I've already logged in before, and it's asking me if I want to join this network. I can either do it here, or I can do it from down here and say join network, and I put the ID in here. Now, the reason for that is you don't want everybody having your username and password. They can install ZeroTier, have them install it, and they can join through what I just did here by going down to this icon here and saying join network without having to log into your account. They don't need to have all that information. So if we go back to our network now, we should be able to go down and we should see, if we just quickly refresh this, did I join the right network? Okay, so now it has our right name. Contact your device service. Sorry about that. I must have done something wrong here. Give it a few seconds. There is a way to check on these things. If you go into your command prompt and you type ZeroTier CLI list networks. Okay, it shows that I am connected to that network. And here we are. Finally, it showed up. Okay, so it could take some time. If you have any other issues, I would recommend rebooting the system. In fact, after I connect this to it, I will, because one of the things that you won't see is if I go to show networks, it comes up kind of strange here, right? And you don't see anything, don't see any networks. You should. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to authorize this machine. I'm going to give it an IP address. I'm going to give it 10 because it's a client. Okay. If I go back to here and I do an IP config, there's definitely an issue. I'm going to reboot because there is an issue here. What ended up happening was, for some reason, it didn't install the network. And it should. There should be a network device. If I go to here and I take a look at the adapter settings, I don't have the extra adapters. So again, like I said, I'd done this before. I had uninstalled it completely. I think this requires a reboot. So let me just quickly do that. And I'll be back with you in a short moment. Okay, so now we're back, and I just want to quickly take a look. It has not started up, so let's start up our ZeroTier. You can set it to start on boot if you like. For instance, if you're using your network for administrative purposes, you can always have this boot at startup. Now you can see I'm already connected to my LAN, and if I go show networks, I now see this network now that I've rebooted. Okay, so now I'm connected, and it shows I'm on that local LAN. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to quickly show you here that I do have another IP address now, which is what was not coming up last time, right? We had an issue where I weren't seeing my IP address at all. So we go IP config again on this machine. And you'll see now that I have a 192.168.192.192.10 as my IP address, as well as my VirtualBox IP address. Like I said, I'm running a virtual machine here. Not my regular machine, it's just a virtual machine. So because my machine itself has 2 or 3 ZeroTier networks already set up, and I wanted a fresh instance to show you how to do this, so it's not already pre-made. So we now have our 2 IP addresses, which is great. So now I'm going to connect to our Windows server down in the States. I'm going to do a remote desktop. Now you see I had already tested this before, so I already had a server there, but it doesn't have that IP address right now. We're going to connect to this one here. We're going to connect as another user. I'm going to use a password to connect to it. Yes. Now, I do understand what you just saw. You saw the password and the username for this particular server as well as IP address. But by the time that this particular tutorial goes live, this machine will no longer exist, nor will the Linux box, nor will the virtual machine. So any of the information that you see in this, including usernames and passwords, it's okay. Try. It won't work anywhere. Okay. So one of the things I want to do quickly here with Windows, for those of you who, this is just a brand new instance. I haven't logged into this one yet. This is, like I said, it's a brand new one. I tend to remove the enhanced security right away for Internet Explorer. Otherwise, trying to install Chrome or any other type of browser on a Windows server is a real pain. So that's the first thing I do. I don't care about anything else for it. I'm going to open up Internet Explorer. Ask me later because I don't care. And I'm going to install Chrome. There's that joke in the IT sector that Internet Explorer is basically the Chrome installer. That's pretty much all it's used for, or Firefox if you're a Firefox user. But nobody, as far as I know, really uses Internet Explorer because, well, it's Internet Explorer. It's Microsoft. It's buggy. It's crap. So, yeah, it is the Chrome downloader. Now that it's installing Chrome, unpin this, because once I'm done closing it, I don't want to see it again. Just give it a few moments to install. Like I said, I normally have this all set up, but I just, this is like my 6th time trying to record this, and just minor things going wrong that I didn't think of originally, and because I've done this so many times myself, it just sort of, you know, goes out of my head, but trying to explain to somebody, there are some certain steps that I sort of skipped and missed. So I decided just to go right off the bat. This is a brand new server, etc. I'm going to keep Chrome open. I'm going to close this here now. This I'm going to pin. And we're going to go over to ZeroTier so we can download the application. Now I'm going to go and grab the network ID. Go back into here. We're going to install the application. Okay, we're going to launch it. Now, we don't need to have that. That's the like the quick start type thing. If you're giving this to a friend, you don't want them to have access to your account. So we can just go down here. We can say join network. I'm going to put in that network ID that I copied from another machine. And to verify, we're going to go into the command prompt. You'll see that I have another adapter here. I can move this. Do a /all so we can see the names of it. So here's our ZeroTier virtual port that we've just created. And you'll see that it has an address that is not part of our network. Okay, this is part of their regular network. And if you actually do a, from down here, if you do a create and join, you'll be able to get one of those IP addresses and you'll be on the network with everybody else, part of the public network. But we're on a private network. That IP has been assigned, so they can't access us at all, our network. I have to go into the application. Let's just go back to networks here. And there should be another member now, okay? So let's just quickly rename these. This is my desktop. This is my Win server, okay? Now, right now, like I said, it's on the network, but it's not authorized, and it does not have an IP address. So in order to communicate between the desktop and the Windows server, we have to, 1, allow the server access to our network, and then 2, we have to assign it an IP address. We're going to give it 250 because it's a server. Okay. Now, one of the things that I had done, because from here, I should now be able to ping. Well, first let's check the IP addresses. And there you go. You see, I'm 192.168.192.250. So it changed the IP address from what it was before here as a 169 address to the 192 that I specified. Okay. And now I should be able to ping my local machine, and I can. Okay. Now, if you can't ping it, don't worry. What ends up happening for Windows machines by default is that file and print sharing ICMP packets are disabled. If you go into your firewall, you go into the advanced settings, and you go to inbound rules. Make sure that your file and print sharing items are selected. Okay, there's one for each network. I just basically make them all. I mean, you can remove them if you want to, but you got to find out which network it is, etc. And it's basically just ICMP. It's nothing huge. So I basically turn those on, and you're able to ping. Okay, so make sure you do that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, because if I go down here and I say view networks, it's not going to show me anything because again I have not rebooted the system yet, so it gives me this gray background. I'm going to restart the server. Actually, before I do that, hold on. I want to make sure that this launches at startup. Okay. I don't have an API key. I don't have anything because I'm not controlling anything from this one. I'm controlling it only from my account on my mains machine. So now that it's set to boot, I'm going to basically restart this machine. Okay, so while it's restarting, I'm going to now connect to our Linux server in Frankfurt, Germany. So what I'm using here is if some of you notice, I'm not using CMD on my machine. I'm not using the command prompt. I'm using a program called conemu. It's a wonderful application that allows you to do so much more than basic CMD. I'm not going to go into detail with it, but it's a great tool to have. And I've also installed from MLS Software the SSH client directly into Windows, so I don't have to use something like PuTTY or anything like that. So we're going to SSH as root because we don't have any users on here yet. I'm going to say yes to include it. And then we're going to put in the password. And we're in. Okay. Now we're going to download it onto our Linux box. Now I tried earlier with this one here, this particular command, which has the GPG keys. And this has worked on every Linux box I've had except for some reason, the one that I spawned today. I have 2 other servers that have it, 3 other servers that have it. It worked fine. So to not waste time and it may be crashing, I'm just going to go with the regular one without the GPG. It should be fine. So if this one here, try this one first, this command up here. If this does not work for any reason, it says you can't find any GPG key, etc., use this command down here. Go back to our box here, and we're going to install it. Basically, all this does really is basically installs the repo for ZeroTier and then installs it. Let's give it a few moments to kick in. And while it's doing that, I'm going to again grab our network ID. And because it's a Linux server, there's no GUI, we're in through SSH, we have to do things through the CLI command. These CLI commands will also work on our Windows machines as well. So ZeroTier CLI, we want to join, and we're going to specify the network ID. You see it says 200 join OK, which means now you're on that network. You can verify. ZeroTier, up, CLI, move that mouse out of the way, list networks. And you'll see that I'm actually on the network, right? But access denied private. This is because we have not authorized this user or this account to join the server yet. So you'll see here, this is now going to be our Linux server. We're going to say, okay, I want that server on our network, and I'll assign an IP address. Now, if I don't assign an IP address, okay, if we go back to here and we list the networks again, you'll see the access denied is gone, right? However, I still don't have an IP address. I have an IPv6 address, but I don't have the IPv4 on that network. And this may work, it may not work. Like you see here, they do have the IPv6 addresses. So it should work through IPv6 once it's authorized, but it won't for IPv4, which is what we want it to be, okay? So we're going to go back into this page and we're going to assign it's another server, so 192.168.192.240, and go okay. Now the Windows server, it still says it's offline. We'll double check that in a few moments and see what's going on there. So now if I go IPA, we should now have our 192.168.240 address, and I should be able to ping our local. So this is the machine that we're on right now. And if the other server is up, and it's not. Okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah, destination not destination host unreachable. Okay. So let's find out why. Let's go and figure out what happened here. Oh, sorry. Before I do that, to make sure it doesn't do that on Linux, we're going to go systemctl enable ZeroTier 1. Okay, so what ends up happening is when Linux reboots, doing that will actually enable it to restart and join the networks automatically. So if your machine shuts down, everything should be okay. Now it's supposed to have happened with Windows, but for some reason it didn't. So let's try and remote back in. Let's see why this has happened. Just give a few moments to everything to start. It's there. Oh. You see, we are connected now. For some reason, it didn't start up. So Windows may be a bit differently than Linux, in the fact that Linux will actually start it up at boot. Windows, I guess, you have to log in first, which is very, very strange. So, interesting. Let me just take a look at the services. Okay. So it's set to log on automatically. It's strange that it didn't. But I should be able to now ping. Oop. I can ping our Linux server. And I can ping our local desktop. Okay, so let's just minimize this because I might have to come back to it. On Linux, I should now be able to ping the server. And as mentioned, I can already ping locally. Now what I'm going to do is, like I said before, you can actually lock down your server so it only connects through the IP address. So in here, right in the first top part here is the listening address. I want to listen only on the internal IP address. Just a bit of a typo there. Okay, so I'm going to exit it. I'm going to try and reconnect on there, and it's going to tell me that that port is closed now. I can no longer log in through the public IP address. But if I change that to our local IP address, of course. Give me a second to fix that. By the way, to fix this, this is where you go, okay? You go to /users, your user, SSH. Make sure all files are selected. Go into known hosts, and we're going to take these two out because those are the old machines that I was working on. Okay, so now that's saved. We're going to try that again. Are you sure you want to add it? Yes. Pop in the root password. And we're connected. So now basically we've just locked down Linux, so it's only on our local network. Now, here's the problem. If, for instance, I reboot, give it a few seconds. Okay, so Connie Me every once in a while crashes when you do that. Anyways, it's rebooting. If for some reason that, just like the Windows machine where it didn't come online where it's supposed to, I won't be able to SSH that machine anymore. If that happens, make sure you're with a service that has a console that you can access, because then you can log in through here. Let's just make sure that the password is showing, because you can't just copy and paste in this, it won't work. So give me a second while I type in that very long password. There we go. Okay, so in any event, if you are locked out, like I don't know if I'll be able to SSH to it now. Okay, I can. Perfect. But if for some reason this came back and it said it couldn't, you can basically go into our application there again. Sorry, it's an etc ssh sshd config. Make sure there's a space there. And you can just rem this out. Restart your SSH. It's way down here. And then you should be able to connect back to the outside world again to get back in. So that's a fail-safe for Linux. Windows, I don't know if you can actually specify the IP address that for RDP to listen on. Again, I'm a Linux administrator, not a Windows administrator, so I'm not entirely sure. But that allows you to basically connect to Windows. And this is Windows here. I'm going to disconnect from it. What? No, I just wanted this one here to be gone. Okay. Give a few seconds. Again, this is a virtual machine, so it's a little bit slower than regular machine. There we go. So let's try and reconnect to it. Let's go to its private IP address. And let's copy the password to it. And voila, we're connected via the local network. So now what we have is we have a machine in Montreal, which is the local host. We have a machine in New York or New Jersey, depending on where the data center is. And we have a machine in Frankfurt, all on the same local directory that I can access. I can file share, I can communicate, I can easily connect to. It's all as if everything was on in the same room with you. So this is great to play games, etc. One of the things that I wanted to show you as well is if you are going to be playing games like World of Warcraft, not World of Warcraft, sorry, Warcraft 3, you have to change the priority of your network. Okay? So basically what happens is you go to your network adapters. I would select the adapter that I want to update. Go to IPv4, Advanced. And down here, the automatic metric, put this to a 5. Okay? And what ends up happening is now that makes that particular IP more important than your other IP. In this case, a 10.0.2. Whatever it was. That makes this one more important, so that basically what will end up happening is that World of Warcraft will broadcast on this IP address. So basically what we've learned today is we've basically learned to set up a local LAN and how to administer it through the ZeroTier portal to basically authorize and give IP addresses to our clients. I told you guys how to share so that other people can have access to administer your network. You can actually give them modify, authorize as opposed to just read access. And we've basically shown that you can actually connect through SSH and through RDP to each of these servers. Now, let's say you don't want to deal with any of that at all. You just want to connect to a network and play. You don't want to have to go through all this connecting and all that kind of stuff. There is a way to do that. So let's go and I disconnected from it, didn't I? Let's remote desktop to our other server again. Put in the password. Okay, so I'm going to, actually let me do this on my machine. We can do it on any machine. You can do it on any machine really, except for, I don't know how to do it on Linux. But for Windows, for gaming, all you have to do is right click on your icon for ZeroTier and create and join network. Okay, what that's going to do is that's going to what am I thinking? Somebody's going to have an account to do it. So let's do it here. Create and join. Okay. So now it's going to show that, yes, a new network has popped up. I'm just going to close this off for a second. Strange. It was before, it worked before. So let me just quickly go to, no, not you, to him. Control C. Again, we're going to use our ZeroTier CLI to list the networks. Now see, it has me on two different networks here. It has me on my CN private, and it has it on Dreamy Creed. So it has another network. It just has not shown up on here yet. Okay, that's okay. But basically what happens is you would basically give this network ID to your buddy. Okay. He would go onto his server and he would say, join a network. Okay. Now, you may have to wait a few seconds. This is going to actually reset the connection because I'm creating a new network connection. RDP blinks, I guess you could say. It disconnects me and then reconnects me like it just did. And now I can actually type again. So I'm going to close this. You'll see it still doesn't show me that it's on the network though. But if I do a ZeroTier CLI list networks, you'll see that I am on Dreamy Creed. And eventually what will happen is in my account here, is now Dreamy Creed shows up as a network. If you look at this, okay, you'll see that there is no managed routes. Okay. There is no ability to authenticate because this is a public network. Okay. You could specify that there is a range of IP addresses that you want to add to it. For instance, do that. Let's go with 192.193 just for the fun of it. And we're going to add, just give me a second here to figure out which one was which. Okay, so 9 is the Windows server. 9 is the Windows server. Oh, sorry, I don't need to do that. My apologies. It did automatically kick them in. It did. So now, if I go ipconfig again on here, one 192.168.193, 165. So there is, like I said, there's a bunch you can do with this. There's so much. So you're going to need to log into the portal anyways, because the fact that you cannot change your metric for your adapter unless you have an IP set. And because it didn't give you an actual IP address, it has a little bit of interesting stuff to do. But this is, of course, a public network, which means you have no capabilities to authenticate a user or anything. Just anybody can join and they'll get an IP address. Okay. So like I said, that's just between the private and the public. I've just created this now to a private one, and now it's going to ask me they're authenticated. Okay, so that's the difference between the two that you want. You normally would want to have a private especially if you're going to reuse that network over and over again. If you're just doing a quick one, you can do the public, join, create and join, but you're still going to need to administer it a bit. If I quit and then I go back into the application, I should see the two networks. You see, I do. Show network, and they'll be both there. Okay. They both are private now. Actually, this one's public. Did I change it back to public? I did. Okay. So this one here is public. So those are the networks that you're connected to, right? So that's pretty much it in a nutshell of what you can do to create or connect to multiple machines to a network, whether you want to do it quickly, at which point you still have to have an account. You still have to be able to log into your tier, into your portal, to change some minor settings. For instance, like I said, in this one here, all you really had to do was turn on the manage routes, create a managed route. Basically go into the auto sign, select the route, remove it afterwards, or keep it. For the public one, I'd just keep it. Wouldn't really matter much what IP address has what. So you can leave that on for the public one, but for the private, I would definitely remove it as that extra layer of security. So anyways, if you have any questions, please leave in the comments below. If you like this video, please click thumbs up, and hopefully I'll be some more videos on how to do things like this. But this is basically just a really quick nit and gritty tutorial of how to set up a private LAN so that you and your buddies can play video games, or you can administer your servers if you wanted to. Like I said, I can now SSH into my Linux box. I can also RDP into my Windows box. And of course, everybody can play video games on this. But like I said, in order to play the video games, you will need to set the metric on the IPv4. Right, so go to advanced and make sure you have the take off automatic metric and set it. This way here that it broadcasts specifically on that network. Otherwise it won't work. This is something that was similar with Hamachi back in the day. It still is an issue now. And on Linux, I'm not entirely sure how to set the affinity of the network. We had tried several things on Ubuntu on my friends, and he couldn't get it to work, so he couldn't host, but I could, because I was on Windows. So anyways, that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.